It's 11 o'clock.
Wow.
Hey,
Precision.
Vervex is certainly up and awake this morning.
Deadly precision on the part
Yeah.
of our robotic timekeeper.
I'm not sure that I want to hear that my robots have
Deadly precision.
Deadly precision.
I'm with you.
That's not what I want to hear.
Your friendly embedded system.
Yes.
Hey, there's a commercial now with the Boston Dynamics robotic dog. I mean, I just happened to see it today, and I was thinking, very scary. They made it look friendly, though, so. All right, man, I feel like we've landed.
Don't you love it?
Radio Science News has landed again.
Landed again.
With a thud. SpaceX landing with a thud.
Scientists are nowhere to be found.
What?
What? Say who? Say where? Say what?
Robert, you're being hacked. There's somebody
I know.
coming in.
Well, I'm constantly being
All
hacked,
right, so
but-
just that's your.
Yeah.
You got a couple extra little digital files that jumped in there. Oh wait.
Okay, I'm just going to turn that down.
Be safe. Yeah, be safe and turn
Be
that
safe,
on.
yeah. Be safe, be good.
Be here
eternal.
now.
Be here now. Hey, just before we went on the air, we were talking about Star Trek dilithium crystals.
We were.
So,
I
of
don't.
course,
I confess.
I had
was.
gone to the dilithium Star Trek page.
Oh.
And it says, in the Star Trek fictional universe, dilithium is an invented material which serves as a controlling agent in the faster-than-light warp drive.
Oh my gosh.
In the original series, dilithium crystals were rare and could not be replicated, making the search for them a recurring plot element. According to a periodic table shown during a Next Generation episode, it has the atomic number 87, which really belongs to francium and the chemical symbol DT. In reality, dilithium, Li2, is a molecule composed of two covalently bonded lithium atoms,
There, I
which
see.
exists naturally in gaseous lithium. So there you are.
See there, it's real.
It's real.
Anybody thought that they were just making that up?
No,
you know?
no.
I'll tell you what. In the I think 88 on their periodic table was ibuprofen. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that was 88.
We better take some more dilithium.
need some ibuprofen. Okay, so Radio Science News is like it was staggering to a start here, and I think we need to get the folks to the launch
Sure.
pad of science.
We can
and
certainly do that.
There is so much.
There is always so much. So if you
much.
go to www.smartcenter.org, SMARTCENTER.org, that takes you to my favorite page on the internet, and you'll find a little trifecta rainbow of Radio Science News in script on little rainbows. I just
Oh, it's
love
beautiful.
them. And then if you click on the link right above that, that will take you directly to the Radio Science News launch pad of science. We have Saturday, July 17th, 2021. If you've been keeping track, and I know that the FCC does, and other agencies, this is episode number 794 in a series.
Wow.
Anything that ends in 4 is certainly not a prime number. So the factors are 2 and 397.
Wow, that's pretty interesting.
Isn't that
Just
cool?
Two factors.
Yeah, just
like
two,
that.
just two factors. So just want to mention that if you want to join Richard and I, Richard's across from me and I'm across from Richard. For those folks that can't see because we don't have any,
But we are
video.
quantumly entangled.
We are constantly quantumly entangled. There are interesting things. Eurofloods.
Eurofloods. Who would have thought?
The delta and the gamma.
The Delta Gamma Lambda.
And the lambda
And
sounds.
the Rama Lama Ding Dong.
I remember that pledge sorority.
The
They
Delta
would
Gammas,
not
yeah.
accept me.
Well, no, the Delta Gammas, they have high standards, actually. so.
Much higher, yes. Yeah.
Okay, then we have the reason why we have what appear to be some wonderful like fraternal organizations
Yes.
is because among COVID viruses, we now have a Delta, a Gamma, and a Lambda.
Lambda, yeah.
Which I was not familiar with until just the other. So we're going to briefly touch on
Okay,
that.
that'll be interesting.
Yeah, we have some information about. Apparently, there's a lot of there are a lot of issues facing us as a planet.
Yes.
And one of the biggest ones would be people who are spreading false information in order to oppose any sort of vaccination or vaccine. So
Right.
I have a little
Interesting about that, huh?
little clip about that, which it's actually more interesting because it's also a bit of a time warp.
Okay.
And we'll look at that.
All right.
Now, we got some of the stories we didn't get to last week. I ditched a couple of them, but the one about using the infrared hand as a device in computing was really a cool thing. And
Okay,
we're
I'm
going to
looking forward to
finally
that.
get to the social fern.
I'm still a little
swear.
concerned about that because
am
there's
too.
got to be a reason that we keep putting it off.
Yeah, well, mostly it's a time thing. But then good news about the Hubble Space Telescope.
I always like good news about the Hubble Space
A
Telescope.
neat story about the ancient Roman, the Roman Empire and the city, and it has to do with it. They found a stone that had plans for the original sort of outline of the city. I'm just picturing somebody, some real estate agent back there, and they're laying it out and they're carving it. It says, "Well, this isn't carved in stone, isn't it?" Oh, yes, it is.
It's
Here it is.
constantly carved in stone.
Superbugs. Now,
Superbugs.
one of the things we've not talked much about because obviously we've been very occupied and preoccupied, and rightly so, with viral concerns.
Yes.
But this is really an interesting little thing from our good friends up the road here in Pittsburgh about how a lot of the bacterial superbugs emerge, and it's kind of a fascinating thing. There's a story about the deep Pacific.
Okay.
We have a little story from Mars, kind of a spoiler.
It's
Mars.
always good to hear from Mars.
Well, it has to do with, is this water or is this not water?
Oh.
I don't know. And then one of the things, I know we spend a lot of time picking on politicians and
Yes,
stuff, and sometimes we
we
call them
do.
rats. Well, this is a neat story about the fact that within the animal population of rats on the planet, that there actually are kind rats.
So if there are kind rats, are there also mean
Well,
rats?
There could be. There might be.
Because to have one, you probably have to have the
To make
other.
to make a differentiation,
Yeah.
or to at least to get a gradient, from one to the other.
So
But-
mean
but-
rats, kind rats.
Well,
okay.
and then even the article, and when we get to it, we'll kind of point towards. So what about humans? And we'll maybe we'll be able to draw some conclusions.
some two-legged rats.
Well, and that's assuming they
that aren't kind.
And I'll tell you what, we've kind of skipped the charts lately, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. Let's click on the charts just for a second.
Let's do that.
And the reason why I put this one up, because this is the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, the COVID data tracker. The only thing I'm going to say is, and I'm sure people have been hearing all the same kind of stuff. This is really, it's got a lot of stuff, and in some ways it almost gets a little tough. But you can look at, before we even go to any of the charts, because if you click on them, it's going to take time to load.
Sure.
I just want to say this is the United States at a glance, and it has a whole page load of stuff, and color bar charts and all sorts of things, and ways of checking on your particular state, your region, and on and on. But if you just look at the very top, you see the very top where they have places where you can click. Mm-hmm. They kind of have, they give you an indication of what the lines look like, last 30 days. And look at the deaths last, and then down, and then wait a minute.
Yeah. So
Kind
it
of-
went down, and then it leveled off, and now it's trending upwards again.
We have a trend upwards, and probably the best thing to do is make listeners aware that the charts that we have on today's thing, and this is on radiosciencenews.org where you find all the live links. There's a lot to look at this.
Yeah.
We're still, and we're now at 68% of adults with at least one vaccination. We
vaccination.
did not meet that July 4th deadline, and
No, you didn't.
there are lots of reasons. So, but we'll go back. Let's go back to the launch pad of science, and
Do that.
before we get into the Delta, Gamma, Lambda, the little series of things
Ring-a-ding-dong.
related to the whole COVID thing, one of them really amazing stories are the Euro floods.
Yeah,
And,
where I was listening to the news, and 2 months of rain came down in 2 days.
Oh, it's astonishing. And if anybody, I know your wife Libby had spent some time in Germany.
Yes.
And my wife and I were in that part of Germany because our eldest daughter was like in an orchestra that had the chance to go play overseas, which was really kind of a cool thing. And we were sort of tagging along as adults, the adults in the room, if that, I'm not sure if that applies or not. But one of the things we loved about a lot of the little towns in Germany was they were often, I wish I could remember the name of the town we really liked. You would be in the downtown area, and, it was the commerce area, and you had cafes and little shops, and you had beautiful, like a plaza with cobblestone streets. But then you had the stream was kind of like, almost like an aqueduct, very nicely done, just running right through the town.
Right through the town.
Because it's been there for years and years. This flooding,
hundreds, if not thousands of years.
well, and this flooding that has taken place, again, the question of, wow, people talk about, this is a once in a, we talk about 100-year events in the United States, and everybody still seems to marvel at the fact that these things come out of nowhere, and you have unexpected things like a system that just stalls over the European continent, especially over the. And when we're talking about Germany and the areas that it hit, where you say, oh, if it's Germany and Switzerland and all this, well, then that it's raining, the precipitation is falling over mountainous regions where you have multiple tributaries that come together and build it up. But this is
they build and mix.
So, now my video is not loading, but if you roll down, you'll see there's some images of like a big bend in the river. Just amazing.
Hundreds missing and scores are dead. See, the real scary thing here is that the raging floods of these types are just, the water's moving so fast.
Oh, and the people have always understood that fast-moving water, especially if it's carrying debris and sand and other stuff, is just like it's an abrasive thing. This one picture, and then right above it is this kind of ironic thing. It says the devastation caused by the severe weather came just days after the European Union announced an ambitious blueprint to pivot away from fossil fuels over the next 9 years as part of a plan to become carbon neutral by 2050.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm thinking, there's probably somebody on some weird news channel who will be pointing out that, see what happened? They made these plans and then it flooded. That's the cause and effect.
Cause and effect, huh?
Yeah. Well, that's the kind of reasoning.
Bad reasoning.
Well, and that's what's frustrating, and it actually will pertain to one of our later stories. But anyway, the heaviest hit region, Germany's Ahrweiler district, where flash floods surged through the village of Schuld. I know as of this morning, there are at least 130 or so, known victims, and so many people missing.
Yeah.
So,
and it looks like at least 1,300 are we don't know where they are.
Yeah, it's the unaccounted for.
Yeah.
And there's always when they have numbers like that, I sadly usually think that it may go higher, and I hope it's not the case. But,
me too.
Floods in Europe, and it points again at the issue of climate and all that. Well, look, let's do a quick dive into the variants that are mentioned here, because I think people are hearing about it. It's probably almost the most covered. You keep seeing that. I know, for example, the county of Los Angeles is going to reinstitute some masking mandates and things. So I'm going to click on the Delta.
Okay.
And we're going to just kind of, Dr. Scott Gottlieb says that the U.S. is vastly underestimating the level of COVID Delta spread. See, that's not good when you were underestimating something that important.
Says there's no clear evidence that this is more pathogenic, that it's causing more serious infections. It's clearly more virulent.
Yeah, more contagious.
It's clearly far more contagious.
Yeah, so now, again, this is one of those good news, bad news stories. You have this happening, and the fact that it spreads more easily is bad. That's very bad, especially if you're not vaccinated. The good news from this is that the vaccinations that we have out there basically handle this for the most part. The problem is, and I know everybody's heard all this. They're talking about how we're sort of becoming two nations where almost, I think I heard this morning that 97% of the cases that are coming in. There are all kinds of issues. Well, they're younger and they seem to be more severe, and
sure.
there's some real things. But it's 97% of the cases represent unvaccinated people, and so there's your
Right.
clear cut.
Yeah.
This is what needs to be done, and we're not here to preach. We're just here to give good information.
It's 11:15.
Yeah,
Right.
at some point, the very simple math has to come to the front, and we all have to accept the fact that if you are not a vaccinated person, you are at unbelievably high risk.
You're taking
if
real
you are a
chances.
vaccinated person, you're at a very low risk. So I can't make it any simpler and easier than that. So when people say, "Gee, well, I'm a little, concerned," well,
Or when they talk about how that it can be confusing, you go, it's not really. I mean, it's not fair to say, oh, it's simple math. It is.
Right.
It is simple math.
it is simple math. The problem is that folks, when you're listening to the same news over and over and over again, you're not getting any more news. You're just getting the same news. And the way that social media works, if you are out to, let's say, purchase a car, and you're online looking for cars, you're going to find out that you're going to be inundated with ad after ad after ad for those kinds of cars that you've been looking for.
Yeah.
Now, it's the same thing if you do a little research on something. You're suddenly your social media is the little mathematical tricks that social media uses to keep you online.
The algorithms.
The algorithms are, hey, this person's looking for more information that's got that bend to it, and so that's all that you're going to get.
like a positive feedback system.
Well, it's a positive feedback, but sometimes it's not very positive.
No, I
Yes,
mean in the
yes.
sense
I
of how
know,
it
yes.
plunges you.
And so what happens is you keep seeing the same news over and over again, but you're not. And if you happen to be on a news channel that's giving you bad news, unnews, false news, then that's all that you're going to see. And if that's all that you're going to see, you're going to have to assume that it's real.
well, your brain will.
Yeah.
In the back of your brain, that room where Noom helps you
Yeah.
lose weight and stuff. Well, okay, so the Delta is the one where we talked last week about the fact that there was also the Gamma. Mm-hmm. So let's see what the latest is from
check
the
on the
Gamma
Gamma.
variant's rise in Washington State, because at that time it says that I think we were still working with this MedPage going to make me. I have to register before I can read it because I read it once and now this is the second time maybe. Anyway, this is from MedPage today. You can register for free, but it looks like you have to set up.
Gamma's variant rise in Washington State. The new data show COVID strain associated with the highest number of hospitalizations and deaths.
See, this is beyond the
Oh,
Delta.
this is not good. It says on top of a historic heat wave, the Pacific Northwest has been hit with a rise in COVID-19 cases caused by the Alpha, Delta, and Gamma variants. And while much of the world is focused on Delta, or the B1 617.2, government officials in Washington State are particularly wary of Gamma, the P.1.
Yeah, this is the new.
Washington State's leading COVID-19 strain remains Alpha B1 B.1.1.7, first detected in the UK, but
Yeah, the
according
UK
to recent data released by the state's Department of Health, the DOH, cases caused by Gamma reached 16.3% in June, a decrease from a high of 20.6% in May. Delta cases increased by more than 10% from May to June, now making up 17.6% of infections in the state, while the Alpha cases continue to slowly dwindle. So the Alpha is you can't catch the Alpha as easily, and so it's dwindling down. But you've got to remember the vaccines that we the vaccinated have were built around the alpha.
Right.
And it turns out that the alpha,
The spike proteins are still
Yeah.
probably the same. I mean, the reason why these are more, the delta and the gamma are more virulent and easily spread is that they have, some of them have more of the spike
Yeah.
proteins.
yeah.
Okay, so if that were not scary enough, let's take a quick look, because I just heard this yesterday, the lambda. So they're going through the Greek alphabet here, just like you said, like a fraternity on a on a bender. Should we be concerned about the lambda variant? And this little article from Angela Betseda, as a coronavirus disease pandemic caused by severe acute respiratory syndrome wreaks havoc. They're talking about the efficacy of the various vaccines. It says several new variants have been identified, which may cause severe illness in some people.
And are more
And are more.
transmissible.
It seems like they're all more. That's the reason why
Mm-hmm.
they're considered VOI, variants of interest. And then this is a little. So we're probably going to be talking about this one. The part that's so worrisome is the single factor that affects all of this is whether or not people get vaccinated. Because as people would logically point out, the longer a virus is out there spreading in the community, the more opportunities it has to just have mutations.
Right.
And most of them mean nothing or have no effect. Some of them actually render the virus less able to
Yep.
spread. But it's just kind of like, any other thing. Nothing succeeds like success, you know.
Right.
So something that is able to have some advantage over its fellow coronaviruses will gradually, as Robert pointed out, emerge as the dominant ones here. So. They have a little electromicrograph of SARS-CoV-2 virus particles, and apparently the Lima, Peru is where they believe the variant. It says first detected in Lima, Peru in December 2020. This is the part that's a little bit scary because if it hasn't been here yet, you're thinking, well, it's not serious, right?
Well, of course it's
But
here.
where it actually in Peru, it said it accounted for 97% of all the sequences in Peru by April of 2021.
So it just went right through there.
Well, and then it's literally, even though we now have identified it, it says the variant has spread to neighboring countries like Chile, Argentina, Colombia, Ecuador, Mexico, the United States, Israel, Germany, and even Australia.
Boy.
So this is again the whole thing that you were pointing out is that the various factors that will cause it to emerge will be the how quickly it can spread and how serious it is and all that. The numbers here were surprising for me because
Yeah. This is the concerning part. It says the most concerning news about the Lambda variant is it has dominated new infections in Peru, a country with the highest number of COVID-19 deaths per capita.
Well,
See, now there's a scary phrase. For every 100,000 in the country's population, 596 have died of the infection. Overall, Peru has lost nearly 195,000 people to COVID-19, among its population of over 32,000, which is about 3 times the rate
that's
of U.S.
amazing.
deaths per capita. Now, is that 3 times rate? Is that due to the medicine? Or is
multiple
that
factors for sure.
due to the variant? See, you've got to ask these questions because in the U.S., we were looking at like 1.6% death rate, and these folks are looking at almost 3 times that.
Yeah, well, it gets into the real technical thing. And here's the other thing. It's now called the C37 variant. So
Okay.
we've not heard of the
Just
C37.
to try to keep that straight.
But the stuff that's a little scary right away is most of the stuff that we're working with in terms of our vaccines have to do with the fact that while it's the S1, it's a subunit protein, the spike protein. This one said it presents with 7 non-synonymous mutations in the spike gene.
Yeah.
And then in addition, it has a deletion of a certain gene which is found in other variants of concern.
The alpha, beta, and gamma.
Yeah, so this is going to be the beginning of a story we're going to follow. It's a little scary, but I have scanned through. They haven't really gotten to the point where they've they can define whether or not this will be one. I don't think that they feel this one will beat the vaccine yet, but I saw some doctors over the weekend, and basically they're saying if leave this out here long enough, and I hate to say it, there's a good chance that that there will be a variant that will defeat the vaccine, and that's what we're all concerned about. So, well, anyway, and here's a big part of the. I've seen so much coverage of this over the weekend that it's almost you go, okay, I get it, but apparently people don't get it. The reason why I put this article up, Robert, is check the date on this article.
Okay.
When you get to the anti-vax, I hear all the people talking about the things that are going on now and the issues of whether Facebook has spread bad information and
This
on and on.
is May 13th,
This is
2020.
more than a year ago.
Yeah.
And the headline of this is that anti-vaccine movement could undermine efforts to end the coronavirus pandemic.
Do you think?
Researchers warn.
Studies of social networks show that opposition to vaccines is small but far-reaching and growing.
See, and now the part that's scary about this is I think I heard somebody use the phrase "the past is a prologue," and I used to hear in college you'd have some professors say, "Well, and always remember that the past is prologue." I'd go, "What? What does that mean?" Well, if you're looking at something that you know has happened, you have to consider that that's going to be a blueprint for how things will be going forward.
Right.
And this is more than a year ago, and talking about false claims and about the vaccines. And at this time they're saying it's small but growing. But right now it's actually probably some scientists in the medical profession relative to the issue of not getting vaccinated and how serious it is to our country are saying that this information, and somebody even said that most of it actually comes from like about a dozen different sources, and then it just gets magnified across the social networks and things.
So do you think that the people are doing this just to be mean?
Oh no, I think some people are doing
is
it
there
just.
some
I think there's
some weird. Is there some agenda?
There's some
going
agendas.
on?
Well, I think people have clearly identified some agendas. Now, I won't even talk about the agendas within our own country, because that's just really, it's almost disturbing to think that within our own country, people would be so intent on either wresting power back into their hands or hanging on to it that they would do things. But I'm just saying that's a possibility. But one of the ones that was clearly defined was that they were saying a lot of it, they particularly were talking in particular about a lot of the false information coming from some Russian sources. And the thing is, the stories are all, they all begin with a little bit of truth, but they're basically intent upon making it look like that we're not handling it. Somebody put it pretty clearly. They like people to think that democracies can't handle things like this. That things have to be authoritarian in an authoritarian manner, dictated so that you do it, yada yada. But they particularly they'll take a story that has a lot of truth to it. For example, that maybe like neighborhoods or regions of the country where you have the population is Latino or black populations, and there's a hesitancy there to begin with, and then they go on to explain, well, they should be hesitant because somebody says they bring on cases of like fertility, bring on cases of just various things, and basically sometimes start with a half truth and then amplify it.
Right.
But the reason why it's basically a propaganda weapon against Western forms of government stuff. So
and again, folks, if this is the only thing you're seeing, and you're not seeing anything else, turn your computers off. I mean, watch something else, anything else. Just get a different point of view, and you might find out that, gee, I've been living in this little my echo chamber.
Well, follow what you see, like among everybody's relatives. You would probably say, I know somebody that got this, and thought they didn't, and you see stories of people who go, well, I was pretty sure that since I'm a 40-year-old healthy male, don't smoke and all that. Please get good information. Now, one of the problems is a lot of times one of the weapons of getting more information is that people go. I mean, you could look at it the same way people look at climate issues. You can have all this data that shows climate, data about temperatures and rainfall, or things happening in Europe and all that. And then what will also happen is then there'll be like a whole bunch of other sources that just put out misinformation.
Right.
And so a lot of people get into that. Well, for every scientist that says this, there's one that says that. It's that the false equivalence of
Sure.
data and things like
It's
that.
11:30.
That's
very much.
really frustrating. Then the other thing I think is really maddening is when somebody, and I mean I saw this literally over the weekend. There was somebody who had heard the information that there was something about the vaccine that changes the electrical systems in your body, and you could actually become magnetic. And they had a thing.
Oh, come on.
They literally had the thing you've seen where little kids put a spoon on their nose and it's
Sure, but
so-
that's not because they're magnetic.
and the whole
it's
point
because
is-
they're oily and greasy.
Well, if there's any kind of little moisture, but the person actually believed that because their car keys would stick to their cheek, that you were somehow affected magnetically, and that also meant that you would, if you were in any magnetic fields, it was going to be changing stuff. So here's the
Wow.
reason why it's such an insidious, terrible thing from the perspective of, say, people using logic or trying. Somebody throws something out, and then they demand that you prove that they're wrong.
that you prove that they're wrong. Yep.
And the whole point is proving to be asked to disprove something that's
Over
not
and
true
over again takes
is-
up all of your time and all of your
when it's also
effort.
not. It's also just not possible,
Right. You
Because you're
can't.
starting with
You can't
something. You're
possibly
starting
do
with
it.
a situation with no data and no real information,
Right.
And then the person says, "Oh well, you prove that I'm wrong," and you go, "Well, I can't." And then of course they go, "Well, I asked them, and
Obviously.
they couldn't prove I was wrong."
Obviously, you can't because I am correct.
So very
Yeah.
frustrating.
Very, very frustrating.
I'm just going to try to summarize. I know we spent a lot of time on this, as we really should, but it does come down to, I think, one really important thing, that at this point in our fight against the COVID situation, the most important thing is, well, first of all, get vaccinated. Get it. If you're unsure about it, please get good information. Don't just I find it so frustrating because people say it over and over again, and then they go, but yet they're still hesitant. And I'm going, okay, how much information do you need? But the good information is out there, and it is kind of up to us as citizens or citizen
Yes.
scientists or as parents or as friends, that we don't let people fall into the rabbit holes of bad information.
No, and I just want to mention that one of the goals of lots of people in the United States is, I want to be a good American. I want to be a citizen. Well, you're not a good American and you're not a good citizen if you're putting the people around you at risk.
At risk, yeah.
That's a really entered thing to do, to put the people around you at risk.
Yeah. So
There are children that cannot get this vaccine. They don't have a choice, and you are making the choice for them.
yeah.
That's not fair. That's just not fair.
So do your part.
Yep.
Just simply get vaccinated, and things will be better.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to
Open your mind.
I'm going to go to a quick look at some of these topics that we kept getting to the end of the show and we didn't quite get
The
to.
infrared hand.
I thought this was cool. The human hand as a powerless, meaning that you don't have to put any batteries in it, and I love this, powerless and multiplexed infrared light source for information decryption and complex signal generation. Now, this sounds like the title of a science project that somebody
It sure does.
where they've said, how can I make, but I mean, they're trying to use precise language here because the neat thing, we're always looking at different ways of entering information. And it says here, the significance, the utilization of electricity-powered light sources as external stimuli is limited by the cost and energy. Here we demonstrate that the human hand can be used as a natural infrared light source without the
Sure.
need for any external power. And here's the part that's cool. And each finger can serve as an independent light source. The hand can
This is
also
really cool.
The hand can be used as a multiplexed IR infrared light source. So in other words, because you have 5 separate digits,
Yeah.
they're located at different points in space. Well, I mean, it's just like somebody saying,
And
"Do you
you
know
can
that if you
move
put
more.
your hand on a piano, each finger could play a different note?" Can you-
No.
I'm serious. The work provides a different insight on using the hand as a functional system, such as information encryption and complex signal generation systems demonstrated here. And this is real. I mean, I think this is really cool. And first of all, I do like the fact, literally, the idea that you're using something that exists.
Right.
It's not like you're going to go,
For
where did I put
free.
that mouse? Where is that thing?
Where
I need?"
is my hand? Yeah.
Well, here it is. Show me your hand. All right. But anyway, this is kind of cool. And when they talk about powerless, I love that because it's first it's kind of an awkward use of the word because it sounds like I'm powerless. What it means is it does not require power.
It does not require. You're right.
Yeah. So anyway, this is very cool. For some reason, my little spinning wheel of color is not letting me scroll. Got to go around.
Got to go around.
Yeah.
So I'm looking down here at
Through the abstract there.
Yeah, and there's a figure 1. Human hand is a natural and multiplexed IR light source, an IR image of the human hand, radiation spectra of the human hand at temperatures of 310 Kelvin, and the ambient at the temperature of 298 Kelvin. This is really cool.
It's neat, I know.
This is really neat. So yeah, so if you're doing things in the infrared and you need a light source, don't look any further than the fingers on your hand or the palm of your hand.
Wow, this is really cool.
And I don't see them mentioning this yet. I might have skipped over because this is a rather long article. But if you want some more heat, all that you have to do is take your other hand and rub the other hand with that for a few seconds, and you'll have a very bright infrared source for a number of seconds.
Well, I kind of like what they're doing here. This is
That's very slick.
it sort of looks almost a little religious there, though. You see those little beams of light coming out of your fingertips.
Yeah.
Some superhero multiplexed. I love the idea of
Captain
being
Multiplex.
I've been multiplexed. The simulated mapping of the irradiance, W over the per meter squared, radiance per meter squared in the plane perpendicular to the human hand. So very cool stuff. And you know what I like about it is it's a common sense approach to something you need to
Yep.
do.
I like it.
I like that too.
Very, very fun. I'm glad
All
that
right.
we that we didn't just let that go.
Well, finally, we're going to touch on the subject of the eusocial fern.
You think so?
I'm just going to look at it quickly because it says a popular household fern may be the first known eusocial plant. Now, first of all,
What exactly does that
that's
mean?
what I'm saying. What is
What is
eusocial?
a eusocial?
Actually?
Okay, so let's see if we can figure this
And
out.
these are very popular. The staghorn
Staghorn
ferns.
ferns.
Yeah.
Okay.
Long antler-like fronds.
Poke out from a brown tissue papery base.
Wow.
They may also be the first known example of a plant that exhibits a type of social interaction. That is the first plant thought to be eusocial.
So eusocial means that you have to have a social organization that does. Let's see if we can find a. One of the things that's always fun, Robert, is when we're diving into this together with folks.
Says in the dry forests of Lord Howe Island in the Tasman Sea, wild staghorn grow in colonies, clinging to the trunks of trees. A recent study in ecology finds that the nests of these ferns arguably share characteristics with those of ants or termites.
Okay, so now that's important.
They're composed of closely related individuals that form morphologically distinct castes with different roles.
Okay, so there's the term. There's where the term eusocial comes from. Is that within, like we think of ants or termites, even though they're morphologically, they're very closely related, but they have distinct roles and
it says
and
all previous examples of sociality are in animals. Plants were completely off the radar.
Well, yeah.
This person from Wellington, New Zealand, finding a putative example of a eusocial fern shatters the notion that animals are somehow more socially complex. He says that suggests that the pathway to eusociality is open to both plants and animals.
Well, that's they should make
This is
vegetarians
just
stand up. And take notice.
fascinating.
Yeah. So, in what it goes on to show is that even though this staghorn fern is a plant, that it talks about the ones at the top have certain strap fronds. They call them strap fronds that are like rain gutters that channel the water into the nutrient core. Then the nest has different fronds that are waxy and appear to deflect water and leaf litter into the nest below. And then ferns lower in the colony have fronds that hanging slack toward the ground, and nest fronds that are circular and spongy, so absorbing moisture and stuff. So it's differentiated itself as a plant based on
Right.
its location, and it has different. The part that makes it hard to think in terms of eusociality is because you're thinking of like intent or
Right.
the ability to recognize doing something. So I mean, this is now it does say there are two other conditions. Wait a minute, where is it? Oh, here it says. Eusociality requires two other conditions. One is overlapping generations, meaning one generation co-occurs with the next.
With the next, okay.
The
that
other
makes
is
sense.
cooperative brood care, meaning collective feeding and supporting offspring through division of labor. And it's kind of unclear whether those are satisfied, says another biologist.
Okay.
I can see these guys just fighting it out down at the old local
at
Hofbrau.
yes. Owing hot and heavy,
Hot and heavy on the road.
very a tall brewy, yes.
Anyway, so the rest of the article does form some, interesting little arguments about how they do coexist and seem to share things, and how they, and again, the question of whether there's intent or whether something just developed. I mean, these are,
This is fascinating.
you know,
Yeah, I need to read more about this. This
Yeah.
is very interesting.
as long as they just don't form pods and absorb my personality while I'm asleep, I'll be happy.
I am
That'll
going to be
good.
right back. I have to
All right,
run for just a moment.
I'm gonna click on to the next thing is about I put down is the Rome stone, and the Rome stone is mine's taking a second to click up here, but for you archaeology fans, the thing I did love about this story was that they found this stone while they were building new sewers in the present day city of Rome. It says archaeologists have discovered a rare stone that it's delineating the city limits of ancient Rome that dates from the age of Emperor Claudius in 49 A.D. And so it was found just recently during excavations for a new sewage system, and they're calling it It says the Rome mayor Virginio Raggi was on hand for the unveiling Friday of the Palmarial stone, a huge slab of travertine that was used as a sacred military and political perimeter, marking the edge of the city proper with Rome's outer territory. So travertine is like a real cool. It's a little bit like marble. It forms. It's beautiful layers of different color. Found during June 17th excavations for a rerouted sewer under the recently restored mausoleum of Emperor Augustus. Let me see if mine will scroll down here. I had a little problem with my computer taking some time here. In ancient Rome, the area on the Pomeranian was a consecrated piece of land along the city walls. So this was basically the very limits of the city, and it was forbidden to farm, live, or build in that area. So it defined the actual kind of like the city limits. Like when you're in Wheeling, and it says, "You're now leaving the friendly city. Please come back again." All right, so cool story. One of the, you might have to call it one of the earliest sort of blueprints, because the fact that it was there as a marker. It's at a press conference at the museum. The director of the Archaeological Museums of Rome said the stone had both civic and religious reasons. All right, well, that's a pretty cool story. Ancient Rome. I'm just waiting for my page to refresh, and remind you that these stories we're relating to you are all on radiosciencenews.org. Sometimes people might drop in the middle of the rebroadcast of these shows, which we do on Wheeling's public radio station and on NPR station in Connecticut, and wonder where you guys are getting all this information. It's pretty much imperative that you follow along on the radiosciencenews.org bioinformatics.org page, or else you can't find the links. All right, I'm just waiting for my spinning colorful wheel on my Mac Pro to decide it's going to let me go back. So, taking a second here. Well, I'm just going to look at some of the. If you're on this thing, they have some cool related stories. Excavations of. Oh, okay, here we go back to the story that I thought was important because we have some neighbors working on this. Has to do with superbugs. As I said, we spent a lot of time talking about viruses. Now, viruses.
It's 11:45.
Well, thank you. There's Starbucks. The viruses are really important to our situation now because we're all dealing with the SARS-CoV-2. But this article on superbugs, I like the little picture of. They have a little sort of weird diagram that shows from the folks at University of Pittsburgh, July 16th, 2021. This is from Phys.org, which is I'm a biologist primarily. Robert, he's more into physics, but Phys.org is one of those sites that just puts up really good stuff. And now this little diagram that we're looking at, it says researchers surprised to find bacterial parasites behind the rise of superbugs. Superbugs. So when you click on that, you see this image from the, it says credit public domain. For the first time ever, researchers from the University of, I have slow scrolling virus on my computer.
Says researchers surprised to find bacterial parasites behind rise in superbugs. Bacterial parasites.
Yeah, so I'm thinking, wait a minute, what is a bacterial parasite?
For the first time ever, researchers from the University of Pittsburgh School of Medicine discovered that phages.
Phages. Yeah, which means something, that means usually, like bacteriophages usually means something that eats bacteria.
Yeah, exactly. Tiny viruses that attack bacteria are key to initiating rapid bacterial evolution, leading to the emergence of treatment-resistant superbugs. So if these little phages, which are tiny viruses that attack the bacteria, that's going to drive evolution in the bacteria, which is going to cause them to become superbugs.
Well, and the speed of the evolution is, it's like, I think this is the fact that it's really thrown people, is that they didn't see this as a factor. You know. And it says, it's really simple. It says, essentially a parasite becomes a weapon, said senior author Vaughn Cooper, Ph.D. Thank you, Vaughn. I like that. Vaughn Cooper, Ph.D. Professor of microbiology and molecular genetics at Pitt. Phages endow the victors with the means of winning. What killed off more sensitive bugs gave the advantage to others. Well, it's kind of the survival of the fittest.
Called evolution.
Yeah. And except this really speeds it up. Well, this is really cool. The new study shows that bacterial and the phages evolve too. Evolution often go hand in hand, especially in the early stages of bacterial infection. It's a multi-layered process in which phages and bacteria are joined in a chaotic dance, constantly interacting and co-evolving.
Wow, I think this is really beautiful.
Well, it's elegant but scary because sometimes nature is elegant and scary at the same time. We're talking about tracking changes in genetic sequence of 6 bacterial strains in a skin wound that affects pigs. They found that jumping of phages from one bacterial host to another was rampant. Even clones that didn't gain any advantage had phages incorporated in their genomes.
That makes sense.
Most clones had more than one phage integrated into their genetic material. So this is like a relationship. It's not as simple as the phages are over here and the bacteria are here and they're going to do stuff and then something survives. It's that they actually incorporate their genetic material into the genome of the bacteria. Well, I'm scared. I'm scared again. I'm telling you.
Wow.
Bacteriophages. What are the less studied or less known to the general public issues?
So far.
Issues of
That's really intriguing.
I'm noticing. I'm looking at our time frame,
Yes.
and maybe we'll come back to the Deep Pacific because
Okay.
I definitely want to find out about the kind rats. I know
Let's
that you do
that.
too,
I do too. Let's,
and I want to find out about Mars. But let's go to the kind
let's
rats
see. It
first.
says, rats prefer to help their own kind.
Aw.
Humans may be similarly wired.
Well, I like the way they said maybe.
Maybe.
What does that mean?
So wait. So it turns out that if you want to study humans, you study rats. So if you want to study rats, you study humans.
Well, I think this is a vice versa thing.
I
Ipso
think so.
facto.
Ipso facto, round and round we go. This is from the University of California, Berkeley, July 13th, 2021.
Now, see, it starts off with what I think is a really nice little sentence about rats. Summary.
The summary. A decade after scientists discovered that lab rats will rescue a fellow rat in distress for, like, food or what?
What? No.
But not a rat they consider an outsider.
Oh, this is
Hey,
interesting.
You dirty rat. New research pinpoints that the brain regions that drive rats to prioritize their nearest and dearest in times of crises. It also just suggests that humans may share the same neural bias.
Oh, you think?
I know.
I'm saying this is really interesting.
There are rats and there are rats, and it doesn't matter if you're white with whiskers or you're 6 feet tall on 2 feet. A rat
this,
is a rat.
So this is actually even pointing at some of the issues we seem to be talking about these days, like the idea of tribalism or the other,
The others.
or
Yep. Them. Yep.
group identity. So this is interesting. It says it says the findings suggest that altruism, the idea that you would help somebody else, whether in rodents or humans, is motivated by social bonding and familiarity rather than sympathy or guilt.
Okay.
Well, this
Isn't that interesting?
Well, it is interesting. Yeah.
Because I bet if you were to line up 60 people and say, so do you think that that you do things because you're a good person, or you do things because of a social bond?
Yeah, and becoming a social. Yeah.
I believe that most people would want to think.
Oh, look who came to visit you.
I think that most people would want to think that they were just good people.
Well, yeah, that would be, but it's breaking down some, because it talks about, I'm looking further down, it says, with nativism and conflicts between religious, ethnic, and racial groups on the rise, they don't even say political or anything.
No.
The results suggest that social integration rather than segregation may boost cooperation among humans. Now, and to that effect, one of the things I know that is being proposed, do you remember the old CCC, the Conservation Corps?
Mm-hmm. I do.
There's actually they're being proposed as a new version of that's going to be related to climate change Corps. And they're going to call it the CCC, and it's going to incorporate mostly, it's going to be kind of like the Peace Corps, which you are very familiar with.
Yes.
But I always remember that one of the things they talked about when they had the CCC back in the 30s, one of the main reasons they did it and what they understood about it was that you brought people from all different parts of the country,
Yes.
and they worked and
they
lived
worked together.
And the amazing thing was, it really changed things. I mean, if you had somebody who was just raised on a ranch in Montana, and then they got to work with a bunch of, say, like Appalachian folks from right here in West Virginia, or say somebody from down in Atlanta, Georgia, and you were all put together and working on things. It was amazing how much benefit that had
Yeah.
in terms of like and that's the term they're using, the idea of putting people together, working on things, eating in the dining hall.
Yeah.
I mean, all that kind of stuff was really very interesting. I hadn't, when I first saw this thing about altruism in rats, I wasn't quite sure what it was. But it's, I see it in chickens. The chickens that recognize that they were hatched, like 3 Rhode Island red chickens. Even though they all interact, those 3 will hang out. Where maybe you'll have a group of leghorn white chickens.
Isn't that interesting?
And it's partly because I think it's as simply as they're saying here, the familiarity or the fact that they recognized, hey, you're one of us. If they may call it tribalism. I'm not sure if that's the right way to look at it, but wow, it's you could sit and transfer some of this to today's world situation, couldn't you?
You sure could.
If one were so inclined. Okay, so let me take you
Spread
to
out the
Mars,
rats.
Robert. Let's go to
Well,
Mars.
Let's go to Mars.
To Mars. Now, this just came out, and I know this is going to be pretty upsetting to you, Robert, because I know you were hoping there was a big lake. It's showing what the question of whether or not some what was hoped to be a big source of water on
It
Mars.
says lakes of liquid water at Mars's southern ice cap may be just mirages.
Oh no!
As Mr. Bugs Bunny used to say, radar findings might instead point to clay minerals or frozen brine at the Martian South Pole. That's not going to do you. You
Frozen
don't
brine.
need frozen brine, and you don't need clay. What you want, if you really think you're going to go to Mars, and you're not, is you really want to have
Elon. No.
Yes, Elon. You really want to have real water, not brine water. You don't want to have it contaminated with other stuff. It says maybe hold off on that Martian ice fishing trip. 2 new studies splash cold water on the idea
Oh,
that
too many
potentially
puns, too many
habitable lakes of liquid water exist deep under the red planet's southern polar ice cap. The possibility of a lake roughly 20 kilometers across was first raised in 2018 when the European Space Agency's Mars Express spacecraft probed the planet's southern polar cap with its Mars Advanced Radar for Subsurface and Ionosphere Sounding.
Wow,
Instrument. The orbiter detected bright spots on radar measurements hinting at a large body of liquid water beneath 1.5 kilometers of solid ice that could be an abode to living organisms. So when they're saying solid ice, they probably mean a combination of solid water ice and carbon dioxide ice. Okay.
Yeah.
Subsequent work found hints of additional pools surrounding the main lake basin. But the planetary science community has always held some skepticism over the lake's existence, which would require some kind of continuous geothermal heating, exactly, to maintain subglacial conditions. Below the ice, temperatures average 68 degrees Celsius.
Minus
Far,
60. Wow.
excuse me, minus 68 degrees Celsius. Far past the freezing point of water. Oh, yeah. Even if the lakes are a brine containing a healthy amount of salt, which lowers water's freezing point, an underground magma pool would be needed to keep the area liquid, an unlikely scenario given Mars's lack of present-day volcanism.
Yeah.
So, for all of you, Leo, let's go off to Mars to swim in the Southern Cap pool. Not likely.
Yeah. So
Not likely indeed.
then they have to come up for what if it's not that, what is it? And
Yeah.
they go
So if it's not
on
liquid
to
water, it's
expand.
got to be something else.
It says that the examining the electrical properties of both clay, minerals, and frozen brine revealed that those could mimic the signal.
So it would look like water,
Yeah.
but it might just be clay minerals or frozen brine.
And then they are finding additional bright spots in other places where they know, they're pretty sure that it's not possible for water to be there. So anyway,
Wow, Mars is looking less and less like a place not just for active human exploration, but for human habitation.
yeah, the brines and stuff
Yeah.
are not going to be the nicest thing in the world. But hey, listen, we're not giving up yet.
Not yet.
No, not me. Okay, so let's take a look at the deep Pacific because
Let's do that.
This was kind of a fascinating. When I first looked at this, scientists get to the bottom of deep Pacific ventilation. So first of all, I was thinking, okay, what is exactly deep Pacific ventilation?
Yeah.
One of the things that is really fascinating is that I always love the science fiction stories. I'm trying to think of the one where there was like some connecting waterway that went all the way under Europe between. You'll probably remember, but
Yeah.
but the idea was that that you could go from Loch Ness all the way to the deep
And
ocean.
that's how it could get in and out. And
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so the Loch Ness a monster was actually an ocean-going.
Well, and I love those kind of mysterious things. But this one has to do with what they call deep Pacific ventilation. And here, again, I'm not scrolling for some reason. We'll see.
It says recent findings with important implications for ocean biogeochemistry and climate science have been published by blah, blah, blah. Okay. All right. The
Yep.
deep North Pacific is a vast reservoir of remineralized nutrients and respired carbon that have accumulated over centuries.
So the big issue here, we'll let you read the rest of it. The big issue is that they're thinking this could be a big contributor to the fact that more carbon dioxide than we would have thought before, could possibly be attributed to this particular thing. So
That makes sense.
hey, read that and enjoy it,
I
and
will,
listen.
thank you.
And come back next week for Radio Science News. We'll be here from 11 till 12, and then if you look at the radiosciencenews.org page, it tells you how you can
It's
access
12
it later.
o'clock.
Right on the